Gojo Satoru, the undisputed strongest sorcerer in the modern age of Jujutsu. A child born of nobility from the Gojo family and a descendant of Sugawara no Michizane, Satoru Gojo is the one who inherited both Infinity and the Six Eyes, gaining omnipotence. No, in fact, Gojo is the concept of omnipotence defined through his character itself. Gege Akutami has made someone easily recognized as the strongest. So today, let's look at how strong Gojo is in the history of the Jujutsu world, because I find it interesting that Gojo has such a profound position and power, literally being like a pillar in the JJK world, yet he is not specifically stated as the strongest in history. But mind you, I think that slight wince of doubt is the question in whether someone like Gojo could fight the legendary demon god Sukuna and even win. Today we will be scaling, debunking, and breaking down how strong Gojo Satoru is. Now Gojo is special. He is an exception among exceptions. As a child born of the Six Eyes and possessing the limitless technique, his very birth sparked a new age of Jujutsu, tipping the scales in power like an answer to the growing strength of cursed spirits in the world. Gojo is more feared today in the modern age than even Sukuna was in his heyday, because of the pure shock of such a being born in a time where sorcery has bellowed out. But first, is Satoru the strongest Gojo in the history of his clan? And the answer is probably yes. And let's actually look at Gojo's technique and power and what makes him such an anomaly. Gojo has two inherited curse techniques, the Limitless and the Six Eyes. The Limitless is an infinity that is used like a convergence and divergence in mathematics, like a immeasurable series of sequences brought forth into reality. So as Gojo uses it, he commands space around him to obey something like Zeno's paradox, a very complicated technique that is very much impossible. Even Gege Akutami has a very hard time explaining it, but while its function is complicated, its application is quite simple. Gojo's Limitless has three infinities. A neutral infinity that surrounds Gojo like a barrier and causes anything in contact to never reach him, to slow to a halt indefinitely. Blue infinity brought through lapsing a negative output onto a curse technique and creating this power to attract. It'd be like attracting or pulling negative distance and forcing reality to fix itself. Gojo uses this negative force as an offensive to move at insanely high speeds, implode enemies, and violently rip space away. The last infinity brought through reverse curse technique, or rather curse technique reversal, is called reversal red, and this is the opposite of blue that causes the lapsed blue force of attraction to invert into a red positive force of repulsion. This divergence of pushing is even more violent, having 2 times the output of blue creates an extreme output of impossible force. Gojo even has non-standard uses of his ability, like fusing his infinities of red and blue together into an esoteric art of hollow purple. This phenomenon causes imaginary mass, so effectively, this is perhaps the most potent technique in the series because it acts as an erasure. Divergence and convergence cannot exist in this world, so it'd be like anything the technique comes in contact with is forced out of reality, like a delete button. Finally, Gojo has a domain expansion of Unlimited Void. This domain causes the target to be overloaded with immeasurable amounts of information that cannot be processed by the brain and puts targets in a sort of catatonic state. This is all possible because Gojo possesses the Six Eyes, an ocular jujutsu that allows Gojo to precisely control cursed energy. I mean, this gives complex precision to the atomic level, and this is the real source of Gojo's strength because it grants him max potential for the Limitless curse technique, and it doesn't stop there, as everything around Gojo is perceived to a degree where even moments pass by like minutes. Everything is processed so much at this level that Gojo's brain would fry if not for reverse curse technique. Through unlocking reverse curse and mastering the Six Eyes, Gojo has found a way to indefinitely keep his brain fresh at all times. And Six Eyes is incredibly broken. It lets Gojo distinguish enemy curse techniques instantly. It lets him read the flow of cursed energy perfectly around him, even to sense things that do not possess cursed energy, and manage his own cursed energy levels so precisely that nothing is wasted, and his cursed energy basically infinite. It'll never run out. Gojo is probably the strongest Six Eyes user in his clan's history, maybe barring the likes of his great ancestor, Sugawara no Michizane. Gojo is like an anomaly among anomalies. This is why Gojo has basically low-diffed every opponent in nearly every fight that he's been in the entire series. And even the example when Gojo has lost at the very young age at 16, there are conditions that went with that. Gojo was extremely exhausted by the use of Limitless and Six Eyes running 24/7 around the clock for 3 days. Gojo at that point did not have reverse curse technique, he did not have domain expansion or very high level use of Limitless. So with extreme amounts of preparation and planning from Toji, Gojo fell that day. But you know what? Even at Gojo's worst, he was still a huge threat and a huge problem. At 16, still no domain expansion, no reverse curse technique, no infinite Six Eyes hack. He was still actually stronger than Toji, and it was by a lot. Toji made sure Gojo was good and tired before going in, because a fresh Gojo would be nigh on impossible to take on, even at 16, which is crazy. And after Gojo fell and was defeated, Gojo made his comeback, and their fight was over as fast as it begun. Gojo was already gifted, but when he unlocked the core of cursed energy, he instantly ascended to godhood, and he was the honored one, and no one could come close. I mentioned that example first because since then, Gojo has perfected his craft as a sorcerer, and he's become something like an anomaly. Gojo is recognized throughout the series as the strongest. Even among special grades, the cream of the crop, Gojo is supreme. And making this discussion, Gojo pretty much speaks for himself. It's easy to see why he's at the top. Especially in his prime now, at 28, Gojo cannot be stopped. He can't even be killed. Literally, Kenjaku cannot kill him in a fight. The Curse team needed years of preparation to even seal Gojo. Gojo casually low-diffs special grade curses like nothing, entire disasters, and it's not even worth much of his attention. It's actually like a meme at this point. Even when his curse technique and abilities are limited, Gojo is such a refined sorcerer that it almost doesn't matter. There is nothing he can't do. If you just focus on Kenjaku's point of view, this is someone who has 1 to 2,000 plus years of Jujutsu experience. He's fought Six Eyes users in the past, has an unknown amount of curse techniques, extension techniques, and maximum techniques, doesn't just have barrier techniques, no, how about he has all of them? Kenjaku is implied to have nearly every barrier technique with an exception being Falling Blossom Emotion, and even then he's the second most powerful barrier user today to have even Hollow Wicker Basket, Simple Domain, Domain Amplification, Domain Expansion, even to just make up domains on the fly because why not? Even to have an open barrier domain expansion with the curse technique deployed on the air. Kenjaku has curse technique reversal, reverse curse technique, technique lapse, technique inversion. He has loopholes within his innate technique. This is one of the greatest sorcerers to ever live. Even considering all of that, still, he does not want smoke with Gojo because Kenjaku knows that he'd lose with 100% certainty. Fighting Gojo is a fool's errand. This is someone who can single-handedly kill entire nations of people if he wanted. He's the reason we're reading the Coin Game arc right now, because if he was not sealed, he'd have accomplished every goal possibly in less than 1 chapter by now. Gojo is unbelievably talented, overhauling his abilities to a degree where he is nigh on omnipotent. He never runs out of cursed energy, has insanely high level use of Limitless, technique lapse, technique reversal, reverse curse technique, domain expansion, a 0.2 domain, and Six Eyes is perhaps the most hacked ability in the series because it lets him spam everything that I just mentioned. He has godly perception, infinite reverse curse technique, infinite cursed energy, insane output, monstrous techniques, and on an especially good day, he'd have a black flash on top of that. This is why Gojo is like the god of Jujutsu Kaisen. Not like a demon god, but he is like the closest to the likes of Buddha himself. And you guys know this. Many of you are already familiar with Gojo's potential and ability, but I want to emphasize that, because next we are going to look into some specifics about Gojo compared to the strongest entities in the series and debunk some matchup specifics, especially with Ryoma Sukuna's forms and a domain battle involving Gojo. Now, there really are only a few real examples of underestimating Gojo's capability, like very, very few examples that is often discussed within the community, and one of them is involving the Shikigami Mahoraga. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like when 15 Finger Sukuna and Mahoraga are involved, it's like we take 2 steps forward and 10 steps backward. It's kind of funny in my opinion, but Mahoraga is viewed so highly because it managed to contest Sukuna at 15 fingers and has been implied to be the cause of a former Six Eyes Limitless user's death. The Gojo clan head and the Zenin clan head fought to the death, killing each other, and Mahoraga is the main reason for the clan head's death in that battle. Now, that is an incredible feat for the Shikigami. Considering Mahoraga adapts accordingly to any phenomenon, it might have found a way around Limitless and killed the user. It could be very easy to lop Gojo in with the likes of his ancestor and argue it's the same case, but we're talking about the one and only Satoru Gojo. If you were to ask me, he's not like his predecessors, and I find it very hard to believe the previous heads are stronger considering the impact of Gojo's birth and his influence in the Jujutsu world. Gojo is so strong that he charged the modern era, and considering Gojo's ability as a sorcerer in his prime, he would destroy that monster Mahoraga with very low difficulty. If you were to be the type to say it'd be any harder than that, that's actually like an insult to Gojo's capability as a sorcerer, because in truth, something like Hollow Purple would meet the conditions of Mahoraga's adaptation. It's a non-standard attack that fuses 2 infinities, creating an impossible erasure, an imaginary mass that removes objects from reality. The technique's target literally cannot exist in that infinity. Not to mention Gojo has other means to kill it, like with blue, red domains, etc. If you think about Gojo's potency with Limitless, it's very tolerant. It flat out overpowered domain amplification, which was meant to shut off his curse technique, and it can even withstand an enemy domain expansion territory. Again, Gojo is much too powerful even against a Shikigami like Mahoraga. Another example is comparing Gojo to the level of something like 15 Finger Sukuna, and that's also another case of, I'd say, that's underestimating Gojo's caliber as a sorcerer, because while I think 15 Finger Sukuna is exceptionally strong, above and beyond the best, that is not Sukuna's peak. Even considering its brief showcase with that awesome short look at Sukuna's depth, he had more to show, and Mahoraga was like child's play at that point. But at the level 15 Fingers is at, I think the fact that Sukuna hasn't harnessed his vessel's flesh is a factor, and when considering his fingers, 15 and 20, I don't view it like a 25% difference thing. It's more like the fingers make an exponential increase in power. The difference would be massive, and I truly think 20 fingers is a whole different world than 15. It has to be, because Gojo said it might be tough, and that was Gojo considering a fully revived Sukuna. So it's pretty much a no-brainer that Gojo would beat a worse version of Sukuna who hasn't even taken his own flesh. And I only mention that because there's a good number of people who might scale 15 fingers enough for Gojo. But we've seen Gojo, he's a supreme sorcerer who has the confidence in taking on the full might of Sukuna. Now, don't get me twisted, at 20 fingers, the full incarnation of the demon Sukuna, that is where the line is drawn. That is where 2 gods clash to see who is the strongest in history. Dare I say it even goes beyond that, because this theoretical battle has turned into Gojo's own headcanon versus the JJK community's headcanon. And you know, Sukuna is actually heavy for favorites. In the Heian era, the peak of sorcery, Sukuna was the king of curses who bested the greatest shamans in history. He is boasted and praised as the undisputed strongest sorcerer, and even Gojo admits he'd have a tough time, which is pure insanity considering the level Gojo has reached. And even then, Gojo doesn't truly know the depth of Sukuna's power. So in theory, it's actually safe to assume Sukuna in his two-armed, two-faced demon form would prove more than a match for Gojo. I tend to think Sukuna may even win, considering he's the strongest being in history, but that would be one hell of a battle. One quick note I wanted to mention before ending it though was a battle of domains, because in high-level sorcerer battles, domains are a major factor, and to put simply, we do not know how an open barrier domain clashes with a closed barrier. Based on Yuki and Kenjaku's battle, we know it's possible they can clash, but it's the manner of how the barrier and curse technique interact. We know Gojo and Sukuna have very refined domain expansions. Sukuna's is especially unique and a lot more destructive because it includes the physical environment. The narration calls it a masterpiece, a truly divine technique. So Unlimited Void would have to expand, endure, and overpower an open barrier's effective sure hit, and Sukuna's would be Cleave that targets cursed energy. Theoretically, if Gojo wanted to cancel Sukuna's guaranteed hit, he'd need to overlap or trap Sukuna within his domain. This specific topic of a domain battle is far too complex and controversial because it depends on many factors, like if Gojo even wished to engage at all, since Gojo could escape easily via Malevolent Shrine's conditions with its escape route, and it depends on if Gojo's barrier could withstand Cleave, because external conditions play a role in a domain's stability, or even if Gojo traps Sukuna, because then Malevolent Shrine would have to exist within Unlimited Void space, and at that point, the curse techniques would cancel each other out. So a reason domain expansion is so effective is because its attacks will always reach an enemy. A domain neutralizes curse techniques. But with Gojo and Sukuna, there is so many factors that could happen with both of them, and both of them have never even shown the limits in their ability of what they can truly do all out. So hopefully soon, maybe even this year, we could actually see this battle in all of its glory. Thanks for watching this video. Today I wanted to generally talk about Gojo's ability as a sorcerer to emphasize how insane he is. But ultimately it will come down to how strong he is against Sukuna. That's why I took time to mention that this video. There's Gojo and Sukuna, and then there's everyone else. But please share your viewpoint on Gojo and even his matchup versus Sukuna. It's definitely a heated one. So leave your thoughts down below. Thank you brothers for watching my content and liking. Maybe soon I'll make more matchup specific videos and fun projects like that. But that's it for this one. This has been Enemy Stand User, and I'll see you awesome guys in the next one. Bye bye.